Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Cats, part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio, the off-season escape, by the one and only Sambo. How are ya?
Good, yeah, doing well. Still battling through the technical apocalypse that has been the off season for my end, but I think this is at least the most prepared I've been, even if not fully back to 100% efficiency.
The key is you've battled through. You've faced setbacks, but you haven't given up. You know, I think that shows something. As we're about to talk about draft, like that's something you look for in a draft prospect.
Absolutely. Determination in the face of great adversity. Battle the odds. I will say probably the most ironic part of all of it is my computer. So my reasonably up-to-date iMac still cannot connect to the internet, but I have got it on in my studio because it's the only charging port I have for my phone, which I'm recording with. So I literally have an iMac sitting on over there that's just basically an AC adapter for the iPhone that I'm recording on.
It's the world's most expensive iPhone charger. Yeah, I love it.
Giant 30-inch screen just to say it's charging.
Love it. Well, we are not far. We're a week from Xmas. When we're recording this, maybe when you're listening to this. So yeah, who knows? Maybe Santa will just drop you a nice big like new computer from his sleigh, Sambo.
Maybe. I think
have you been good enough?
I would have to be a much more devout follower of Santa for him to reward me thusly, I think.
Yeah, it's true. Only the true Father Christmas zealots get the iMacs.
I haven't even seen Red One a single time. Perfect opportunity to demonstrate my commitment to the cause, and I haven't even done it.
Sounds like you're a level 4 naughty lister by the sound of things. All right. Kill me. Let's get into the show today. We have a bunch of stuff to spin you through on this episode. We're going to recap the AFLW draft. The Cats have added 3 new kittens to the collection. Cat puns. Off-season news. We'll do a bit of that. And then for the Patreon subscribers, we're going to rank our favorite AFLW Cats. We did the men's team last week. We go, podium style, bronze, silver, and gold. So we'll name each of our 3 favorite current AFLW Cats. It's a good time of year to do it because there's been a bit of list churn. So if you want to get that part of the show, pop on over to the Hoops Crew on Patreon. Sign up for a 7-day free trial. You've heard the blurb a bunch of times. So if now feels like the time, do it. Or if you've got a family member who you think, they'd really like a Hoops Crew Patreon membership, why not do that for them and pop it under the digital Christmas tree? Before we get into that part of the show, though, the rest of the show, in fact, we have to say a massive thank you to our media network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. You can visit them, www.cyrilcookflorist.com.au. Remember, that's Cook spelt with an E. Phone them up on 035 222 2244 or go on over to shop 1211 Leather Street in Breakwater. Tell them that the Hoops Crew sent you, and Sambo, what do you get?
Oh, gosh, sorry, I'm dropping my iPad now. I'm on the spot. I'm back on screen. 20% off?
Correct. 20% off. 20% off in store with our glorious media network sponsor, Cyril Cook Florist. So please go on over. It's time. Maybe grandma needs some lovely flowers, at this time of year. Go on over to Cyril Cook. Maybe, I don't know. There's like all sorts of ways you could do it. All sorts of ways you could make use of that 20% discount over at Cyril Cook. So please go and make use of it. Sambo, let's jump into the show, though. Lots to get through. We're going to start with the AFLW draft recap. Went down on Monday evening, I believe. Sort of losing track of days here in the off-season escape. And the Cats added 3 players to their playing list.
Yes. Always exciting. All of my information was just coming through the Hoops Crew live chat and such, keeping abreast of it. I've been woefully out of touch with a lot of the off-season news until pod day, and then I'm tuning into the notes that I'm getting sent and catching up on stuff. So I will admit I am very behind on the news, Jake. So I've got not a lot to add, but I'm here to be informed. I am the listener today. Forget everybody else. You're just teaching me. You're just schooling me on these prospects. So as you said, we got 3 picks. We'll start at the last one we took up, and we'll build up to presumably the one that they were the most keen on, which was with pick 37 with Piper Dunlop. So what can you tell me about Piper Dunlop, Jake?
Well, probably the one I feel most confident to speak about, Piper Dunlop, because she actually played a bunch of games for the VFLW Cats last season. That's where she's been drafted out of. She's a towering ruck. That's how she's described both on Rookie Me Central. It's how the Cats have described her on their website, and it's how I would describe her as well. Now, she's 186 to 187 centimeters. I saw a few varying numbers on the different websites. She obviously comes from a basketball background, so you can check that one off the list. So for just a bit of reference, I suppose, Kate Darby, who did most of our ruck work this season just gone, she's 180 centimeters. So Piper Dunlop is, a fair bit taller than Kate Darby. Last 4 games for the VFLW Cats, she was really, really strong. She had averaged 30 or more hitouts across those 4 games, 10 or more disposals, which for a VFLW ruck is pretty good, and 5 or more tackles in those games as well. So she was a player who definitely did her fair share of winning the hitout. Now, she was playing on a team that by that end of the season, the VFLW Cats, they had sort of a strong-ish start to the year and really cratered down the stretch. They lacked the depth to compete to the level they have in previous years, but Piper Dunlop really put her best foot forward and was willing not only to compete in the ruck, compete in the air, but then once the ball hit the deck as well, she was, very happy to apply that defensive pressure, and that obviously tells in the tackle count. I love that she's familiar in the system for the Cats. Like, that's been a big thing a few years ago. There was lots of talk for Geelong about, can we streamline VFLW to AFLW pipeline? Like the players who are playing VFLW footy, can we get them playing in a similar way, in a style to what the AFLW team is? So I really like that. If she stays healthy and can develop at a consistent rate, I think you could be looking at a long-term ruck solution for the Cats, which obviously they've sort of desperately needed.
Yeah. Do you read anything into the fact that she came at like pick 37? Like, we were discussing in the group chat, you'd raised the ruck situation that they just hadn't plugged that hole yet. It was sort of an 11th hour kind of thing. Is there anything going on there, or was it just that they were so confident they were getting her? They were so confident she was all they would need. How do you feel about that?
It's hard, isn't it? Because you sort of go, last year, it felt like we were short, in terms of a genuine ruck. Obviously, we went into the season, or we finished the 2023 season thinking, maybe we'll have Erin Hall, maybe we'll have Olivia Fuller, Kate Darby to back them up. And then, of course, that all fell through. Fuller moved on to other career opportunities, which, very much entitled to do so. Erin Hall called time on her footy career. Cats went and drafted, rather they signed Lily Pearce, who had some time on Collingwood's list. And she then got injured, never played a game for the Cats, and she's now off the list. So, look, I don't know if there's any more signings to come from that perspective. I have a feeling maybe the plan will be I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of eggs in the Piper Dunlop basket, put it that way. And I think maybe part of it is feeling that, like you said, maybe not feeling they needed to go and draft her, high up in the draft because they already had the familiarity. They knew that she would probably be available, maybe wasn't a national prospect. So I guess it could be a combination of factors. Either they just weren't in the race to take players, that maybe would have been more highly rated on a national level, or maybe it was just, the familiarity is good for her. Maybe the familiarity is good for the Cats. Maybe they just really liked what they saw. I actually, in one of my VFLW recaps that I do for the Patreon subscribers towards the end of the season, I think I actually made the comment that I hope they drafted her. Yeah, she has talent. She has super, amounts of upside. I think she is more of that build that we need for that genuine ruck. It just makes you a little bit nervous how much we've been whittled down at that position. So yeah, fingers crossed that she pulls through the off season healthy and can get a big year for the Cats in.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully it's exciting. It's exciting to have a new prospect, but I was very excited for Pierce as well. So as we know, many things can happen in a season or right before a season. So the next pick they got was pick 18, and it was now pronunciation going to be a real challenge on this one. Sienna, is it Talariti?
That's what I would have gone with. Talariti would what? Yeah.
Talariti, a bit more of a D than a T. Talariti. And what's Sienna's prospects like, Jake?
Well, it took her, as you said, pick 18 from the Oakley Chargers. Is that sort of defender, intercepting defender, the thing that stood out watching her highlights. I'd never seen her play before. So I've just watched her highlights. There's about a 10-minute highlight package on YouTube. Now, I say she's an intercepting defender from what I could see, only 169 centimeters. So she is on the shorter side. That puts her, significantly behind, Claudia Gunjaka, Meg McDonald. But just out of interest after watching her highlights, which the type of player she is, the 9-minute package was really the ball coming in and Sienna Talariti cutting the ball off, intercepting. It was her, dueling with other players one-on-one inside the defensive 50, winning the ball on the ground, getting a hand pass in traffic and be able to sort of use that lateral sort of swiftness and elusiveness to get a little bit of space to deliver a kick downfield. I think she looks like she handles pressure and congestion pretty well. She backs her skills and backs her elusiveness. She's strong body, definitely. She doesn't get pushed out of the contest. She competes for it in the air. She competes for it on the ground. But the real thing that did stand out was that intercepting down back, whether it was intercept marking or just intercept possessions. And the other thing, I suppose, actually that came to mind was that there were highlights of her kicking off both feet. Now, I would say she's much more confident off her right foot, but there were plenty of times in that, 10-minute YouTube highlights reel where she was more than happy to kick off her left and pretty accurately as well. So the player I instantly started to think of in terms of, what sort of role could she play for us? I just out of interest Googled Emma Carney and how tall she is for North Melbourne. Now, she's been a player, obviously, that's stuck in the Cats' craw on multiple occasions. And she's actually just a little bit shorter than Sienna Talariti. But I just wonder if she can fulfill a similar role for us. She seems very intelligent with how she reads the play, and very composed down back under pressure. So, yeah, I really like the look of her when she was playing down back in those highlights, and just probably provides us with a slightly different type of player down there, like not that tall that we have in Claudia and Megatron, but sort of a smaller or medium-sized intercepting defender.
Yeah, cool. So and obviously, we've got a lot, as you've laid out. We've got a lot of depth in that back line, but a lot of it is starting. A lot of those players are starting to sort of, I suppose, get a little bit older, and so we'll look into the future for that. Obviously, I'm assuming not the kind of player that's going to slot right in, you would think, and replace anybody that we've got at the moment. But still, yeah, exciting nonetheless. And then on to our last for us, the first pick that the Cats made with pick 10, which is Alexis. Now, again, is this Gregor? How would you say that? What were you going?
I was just saying Gregor. Alexis
cool.
Gregor.
So what's first of all, what was your prior knowledge, if any, of Alexis Gregor? And if you didn't have any, what have you learnt through Rookie Me and the highlights that are available?
Well, the highlights were really interesting to watch. She pretty much played the arc of 50, whether that was attacking 50 or defensive 50. She did both. Okay. Something that stood out was like so much kicking. I know that sounds basic in a game called football, but like she gets the ball and she bombs it long. Like she loves to kick it long, kick it quick. Whether that's coming out of back 50 or going into attacking 50. She marks pretty well overhead. I would say she also marks really well on the lead. She seems to be prepared to work hard to space to get down and take those marks a little closer to the ground. Pretty willing to tackle as well. There were some clips as you got sort of later into that highlights video of her laying some really nice tackles. Also takes on a tackler. There are a few times where the ball might have, she hasn't marked it, it's bounced to her, and someone's got her, and she gives them the old stiff arm in the chest and pushes them off. She, duck the head and break tackles. So she's a really combative player. I thought when you watched her highlights, very physical kind of player. And as I said, both ends of the ground. She's 181 centimeters, so she's described as a tall utility player. So I think
they stole my word. I was about to say a bit of a utility player.
That's right. She is. So it's interesting, you mentioned just before about, players, potentially getting to that sort of towards the end of their career kind of age. It makes you think about players like Kate Darby, who performs that utility role for the Cats. Like, how many years does Kate Darby want to play on? And she might have a heap of seasons left, but you also never know. And particularly, I think in women's footy, it can change really quickly. It's only have to rewind 18 months, and we probably thought Olivia Fuller was a future ruck solution for the Cats, and now she's doing something different. Outside of footy, it can change really quick. So I think it's interesting to me that the Cats, I suppose, have gone after defender and then ruck and utility. There's obviously a mind. I didn't know. I sort of wanted to throw it back on you here a little bit and say, and just to cap off the thoughts on Alexis Gregor, like, very exciting. I think there were lots of clips where it's her making things happen, bringing teammates into the play, like competes really hard. Like the clips that stood out to me, like in the forward 50, was maybe she goes up and competes for an aerial ball. It comes to ground. She gets it, fends off a tackler, gets a handball to a teammate in space. Like, she's very, very hard working as well. So those were all elements of her game that I liked. And as I said, diversity of skill set, can play forward, can play back. But I wanted to put to you, having now sort of had those players described, like, do you think they meet needs that we had? Do you think they address areas of concern you had based on the season we've just come out of and going into 2025? Like, how do you feel about what we've brought in? And I should say too, sorry, on the ruck situation, we did also sign the netball player as well. So that shouldn't be forgotten as well. There's a former Australian netball or volleyball player. I can't remember her name. We talked about it a few episodes ago. So I suppose we have added her as well.
Yeah. And I mean, it's tough to predict because I mean this kind of links into my follow-up question for you, which I will throw out after this. Because I think so much of what we were lacking, like as far as filling needs, so much of what we were lacking in the season just gone was so sort of intangible to me. Like I'm hoping it was a bit more tangible for the coaching staff and the players, and they kind of knew a little bit more of what we were lacking. But beyond the ruck situation, which I think was a ever present thorn in our side. Again, not to diminish the efforts of players like Darby and that, but it just we never had a full a solution to that problem for a full game. And so couldn't really build a season of consistency around the ruck position and what the ruck could do for us. It was always forming our midfield around sort of that deficiency sounds really harsh, but not deficiency from the players, but deficiency from a positional point of view, that we just didn't have that sort of key ruck position to do, the majority of that work. And beyond that, I don't think there was much, from my point of view, I don't think there was much personnel. Many of the problems were personnel based, so much as performance, sort of team synergy and confidence, belief in each other, and that sort of just building that awareness of where each other's going to be before they are. We talked ad nauseum about the delivery inside 50 was always troublesome. The movement, so the what was on offer inside 50, the movement was so stagnant in the 50. And sometimes the back line was a little bit disorganized. Sometimes we were on top of each other. It seemed like we had too many players down there, sometimes not enough, and there was free players. But none of that to me was because X player was bad or Y player was not ready for their birth into the W or anything like that. It all was just like form based. I think we were just out of form in a lot of areas, and we couldn't kind of get it back on the fly. As we were sort of, and I mean, to be fair, we couldn't get it back on the fly for a large stretch of the season, but I feel like we did fix almost all of those issues by the end of the season. It's just that it was a little bit too little too late. So I don't know that these players fill any kind of needs, because I think it's bigger than just a player that needed to slot in. Obviously, Chloe Shear being out was huge, but I don't think any of these players are going to replace, Chloe Shear, because hopefully Chloe Shear is coming back in and filling that void. So beyond the ruck situation, I don't really feel like we have a personnel issue presently, which I suppose brings me to what I wanted to ask you, which was, which player of these three do you think is most likely? Do you think all these players debut this year? Do you think none of them do? Which player is the most likely? Like, to me, Gregor seemed probably the most, purely based off, sort of watching with one eye, the highlights, and listening to you talk. She sort of seems like the most fully developed of the three, but probably not necessarily a player that I feel like fills any deficiency we have right now. So from your point of view, who do you think, if any of them, is likely to run out round one? round three when there's an injury or whatever.
Yeah, well, I actually think maybe it's Sienna Tallaridi. I was just having a look on the Rookie Me profile, and I didn't get a chance to read these, but they've listed a lot of her strengths as the same strengths that I saw. Their ability to read the play, footy IQ, her composure. But they've also listed things like leadership and being a big game player. They talk about, it goes without saying, Tallaridi is a big game player. Chargers skipper stepped up when it counted, was able to deliver on grand final day, not just once, but twice. Composure and footy IQ behind the ball is incredible. Now, the things she needs to work on, they say, are her endurance and speed. So my thing is, you've got all of these things, like a huge list of strengths that I think would be very helpful for our backline, particularly, as you said, sometimes it looked like we just really got caught down back. maybe just lacked a little bit of structure and that sort of thing. I just wonder if it's not like she's been drafted in the AFL men's team where you've only got maybe 4 months or something to prepare. She's got the best part of 9 months. So
True.
if she gets into Geelong's AFLW program and can improve some of that athletic side of the game, the speed and endurance part, and I think the Cats are really good at that. I think that's been a big focus under Dan Lowther. Like from day one, we need to get fitter so we can run out games harder. I think she's got a great chance because I think she brings a lot of other qualities. I always like when you draft captains. I don't know. I think it just, you've got, this is a player who has intangible skills outside of footy that she's been recognized for, in terms of her leadership. And so I really like that. And I don't think it'd be the worst thing to bring into our team. To be honest, I think last year, maybe at times we lost our heads a little bit. So maybe just to bring in another couple of players who can add to that leadership and composure, particularly down back. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sienna Tallaridi. I think she could be that player who makes the jump in year one. Awesome. All right. Any more questions for me on the draft, or will we shift on?
No, I don't think so. I think everything's. I think you've answered all my queries.
Fantastic. All right. We are now going to talk about some off-season news before we get into our favorite Cats. So first off, going to talk captaincy. Speaking of leadership, that would have been a good segue if I'd nailed it correctly. The Cats, AFL men's team, they've announced their 2025 captaincy arrangement. And they are staying with consistency. Sambo, it'll be Patrick Dangerfield's 3rd consecutive season as Geelong's captain, and it will be Tom Stewart, who will be vice captain for a 4th straight season. He was vice captain under Joel Selwood in 2022. So there's a quote from Andrew Mackey: "We are grateful to have strong and influential leaders in Pat and Tom, people who will continue to lead our football program and club into 2025. They're not only influential leaders on the field, but they are key drivers of high performance and Geelong's contribution to the community." Sambo, what are your thoughts here? No change. We're going with the same arrangement. Do you like that?
Yeah, I do. When it was, announced that Paddy was taking over, I was probably one of the most, I wouldn't say I was negative about it, but I was the most sort of nonplussed about it. I felt like at the time, I remember feeling like it was a bit of a non-move. Do you know what I mean? It was a bit of a non-call. It was kind of like, we're going to go with the next, the next player that's like going to play on for a few seasons, but always also has been here for a long time and, play closely with Joel and all that. Like, I remember feeling a little bit like I would have liked a bit more, something a bit more revolutionary, even if it had been just going straight to Tom Stewart. But I think I was wrong. I do. I think my gut feel was probably astray at the time, and I can't really imagine anyone else having navigated the seasons that we've had post Joel Selwood with the grace and professionalism that Paddy has. Like, as much as I like to look to the future and think about, a dynasty built on some new 24-year-old that's just ready to go and lead a team for the best part of a decade. I think Paddy was the obvious choice for a reason, and I can't really now, in hindsight, see anyone else having done it.
Yeah, I think your thoughts are all. I'm pretty much in lockstep. I'm a big Tom Stewart fan. I was pretty keen for Tom Stewart to take over the captaincy, but I think Dangerfield was able to bear that 2023 season a little differently to what maybe Tom Stewart could have. And obviously, we're just speculating, based on what you see of them on the field. We don't know them, and we don't watch training. We don't have any inside access. But the impression that I got, and I think we all probably got here on the show, was that Stewie would probably have worn that 2023 really, really hard and really personally. You know, you go from a flag to not even making finals, and some really disappointing losses. And it just felt like Patrick Dangerfield was the same person the whole way through. Very, very sure of his place in the game. And I actually think they're a perfect pair. And I think it works perfectly like this with Dangerfield as the captain and Tom Stewart as his vice, which leads me to the question: do you think Tom Stewart will ever captain, or do you think he's just going to fit perfectly in this vice captaincy role now through to the end? It sort of makes me think a little bit of the Australian cricket team. You know, Adam Gilchrist was always the vice captain. Unless there was an injury or whatever, and he had to step in. I don't ever really remember, and maybe someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but Gilly being named, you are the captain. He was always the vice man. Do you think Stewart is that now for the rest of his career?
As with all my answers, it depends. There's caveat upon caveat. I think it really the thing it depends on really is how many seasons Dangerfield plays on. I think there is a window for Stewie where he is the only option in a good way, not in a desperation. I mean in a no-brainer kind of way. If Dangerfield was to retire, say at the end of 2025, I think that's I don't personally see anybody else in the team right now who I think could shoulder the burden of captaincy and keep Tom Stewart as vice captain. I don't know if you've got a varying opinion to that. There's lots of people who I could certainly see doing it in the future, but I do think there's about maybe a 2-year window at the moment where I think Tom Stewart is probably primed to do it. But if Dangerfield strikes, he's the kind of guy who's going to try and play on for another 7 years. If he can. So Tom Stewart may just kind of time out, as in there's a more obvious captaincy candidate, and so Tom Stewart stays as the vice. Because that's something that I think I have come to realize, and I think you were alluding to this, that vice captain isn't the second captain. He's not it's not like he's the one who steps up and becomes captain after that captain retires and then another person steps up. It's not like it can be used as this, but I think often it is not like a training ground for captaincy. It's a separate role. It's a separate job title. And I think the thing that I relate it to the most is, I don't know if at all of a relatable analogy for many listeners, but on a film set, the director and the assistant director. The assistant director is something that when you and I were making a lot of films, doing more than we do now. Assistant director was something that I always kind of went, why we got two directors? The two of us are writing and directing and producing this. We're steering this ship. Why would we need another, like a third director? And it's only in hindsight how I've realized how important that assistant director can be. That again, it's not the backup director. They're a separate job, a different type of person. They're looking at it through different eyes. And I think Tom Stewart is that in this scenario. Tom Stewart is, he's very serious. He's very passionate and very serious about. He's keeping the ship. I think he's the one driving the professionalism, the straight and narrow stuff. And I think you need the actual captain to be able to have that bit of levity that Dangerfield has. Like, in that 2023 season, he wasn't all doom and gloom. I never got the sense that he didn't care, but he was able to wear it all in a kind of, it's not life and death, guys. Like, we're going to get through this. It's not the end of the world. I think that is important in that leader, but you need that other person that is kind of, in an assistant director on a film set kind of way, going, get this person off set, get that water bottle out of shot. We need to be, you guys can't be joking around now. You need to be in costume because, you're filming in 15 minutes, or you need that person that's really driving the practical side of stuff. And I think that's Stewie. Sorry for the long-winded answer.
No. That's a perfect answer. I think it's totally right. And, I've heard some people talk about Max Holmes being the next captain. at the club, I'll be interested to see. I'll be really interested to see. And a name that sometimes sticks out for me might be Zach Guthrie. But even he isn't necessarily like a perfect candidate. I don't know that there's a perfect candidate there at the moment for me. I think it could depend this year how a few different young players develop, just a few players develop in general. But Cats going in with an unchanged leadership setup for 2025. And the second little part of our off-season news wrap, Sambo, is just that Geelong's match simulation details are confirmed. They will kick off their season the 17th of February, Sam. We are 2 months away from having footy back on our screens. It'll be against the Hawks in a match sim down at Kidinia Park, Monday, the 17th of Feb, scheduled to be in at 2 p.m. The Cats website says further details to be confirmed closer to the day, including whether or not the session will be open to the public. As I jokingly said in our Hoops Crew group chat, there'll be, 17 quarters. The first 2.5 will be on KO. The rest you'll have to, prize out of the Kremlin once they actually go, contact footy or whatever. We don't want everyone stealing the state secrets of Geelong and Hawthorn's match sim. But yeah, more just to put to you, like, is it just insane that we're only 2 months away? Feels insane to me.
Yeah, it does feel pretty nuts. I mean, I don't put any stock in match sims whatsoever. To be completely were this round one against the Hawks, and it was more than 2 months away. I would be getting nervous and excited right now. I don't feel any of that us versus them sort of that tinge of rivalry coming into a match sim, because I don't think they will either. If anything, maybe the Hawks will take it a little more seriously, being a younger and just being that sort of side that seemed to, they on the outwardly they were having a lot of fun and making jokes and all that kind of stuff, but you felt like it was a bit life and death for them. You did feel like it was real. Every second, every shot at goal was their whole experience was riding on it. So I can imagine them turning up with a bit more venom than the Cats, but I think overall, I still don't have a lot of feeling about a match sim.
No, I don't think so either. And imagine if we're doing this podcast for another, say 5 years. Imagine how little feeling we'll have about a match sim by then. It won't even get on the show. All right, that is all from the public part of this podcast. We hope you feel well and truly up to date on the AFLW stuff. We hope that, we've covered those news points for you. Well, we will be back with one more episode before Christmas. We generally try and do a Christmas episode. Usually it takes the form of a Christmas lunch draft. So yes, we will look to put one more show out for you before the festive season begins. Now we're going to go on over and rank our current favorite AFLW Cats for the Patreon subscribers. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Hit that subscribe or follow button on whatever app you are currently consuming the pod. And until next time, go Cats!
Go Cats!